Sometimes you just want to watch a silly Studio Gilby film about um about a girl saving a cat, not knowing he is the prince of cats, and then somehow being transported to the world of cats or going to the kingdom of cats. And like I guess then almost being thrown into an arranged marriage. I was thinking so this was one of like obviously Miyazaki's films that actually I had never seen before. So I watched The Cat Returns probably okay, yeah, I think in December time. So probably like around Christmas, which is obviously very weird because it's not a very Christmassy film, but obviously I like to be able to say that I've, watched most, if not all, Studio Ghibli films, and I think The Cat Returns was one that I hadn't seen. And generally, like if you were to ask me, honestly, I say to people, yes, I know Ball. I've watched most of Miyazaki's films, right? I even sometimes I say I even watched When Marnie Was There, and I know people like When Marnie Was There. Some people do, but it really didn't do anything for me. When Marnie Was There did nothing for me, and that's surprising, seeing as do you know what I mean? Seeing as it is one of Miyazaki's films, and his films have have this just feeling to them. All of them have this feeling to them. Do you know what I mean? That you're in for a good story. Do you know what I mean? But I remember when Marnie Was There, I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think obviously with something like that, that can make you your lose your interest because you're like, oh, like this film is not ticking any of the boxes for me. So what can I really do? What can I really say? Do you know what I mean? But like, I feel like with The Cat Returns, anyways, it was more like, very adventurous. I think, okay, now we're doing a bit of comparison, right? But I feel like maybe When Marnie Was There tried to be like that too. Do you know what I mean? That adventurous element. But then I feel like also When Marnie Was There was probably more, what do you call it? It was more family orientated. I mean, in the way that like I guess the main character of When Marnie Was There was basically wanting to find out her identity, and then I swear in the end, like, she comes to find out that like she's related to them or whatever. But again, world of a film, let's not get sidetracked, because world of a film, that's what When Marnie Was There is. But The Cat Returns, like, it just feels more straightforward. I at first started thinking I thought I'd seen The Cat Returns already, but obviously I hadn't. It's because of that cat, right? You know what I mean? The cat, the guy with the suit. Like, I thought, oh yeah, he's also in yes, Whisperer of the Heart. So that was why in my head I thought that I had seen the film already. But obviously when I watched it, I realized I hadn't. And I think obviously you always know. Do you know what I mean? You know when you've watched the film anyways. Like in the first few minutes, you will immediately remember, you will immediately know. Yeah, okay, so the 16th of December, that's when I watched The Cat Returns. But yeah, like, you will generally know whether or not you will see it, like you've seen it before in the first 5 minutes, and if, like, it's made any kind of I guess, yeah, any kind of imprint on you, I mean. And a great film will leave an imprint on you. And I meant, like, that's what I mean. I meant when I was watching The Cat Returns, I was like, I would know if I had seen this film already, in the way that, like, it was just I feel like, I don't know, and this film feels so different to me for me than all the others for some reason. Like, obviously I put it also on my, obviously, yes, Studio Ghibli favorites, which is obviously why we're discussing it. So we're discussing it because obviously I was doing this Studio Ghibli thing of all my favorites, and I put Cat Returns probably, I put it right before like I think Ponyo. Yeah, so like it's next to Ponyo. It's like it's obviously the fifth one on this list, right? So it's the fifth on the ranking list, which is obviously eight. You guys obviously know that I already spoke about I already talked about Spirited Away. I already spoke about um Kiki's Delivery Service. So I obviously already spoke about those two. But then obviously, because Spirited Away was eighth on the list, and obviously Kiki's was seventh. And then obviously I need to also do the My Neighbor Totoro, which I will get onto. But the fact of the matter is that I didn't want to talk about My Neighbor Totoro yet, because I'm gonna give it a rewatch and then have, have a whole new fresh perspective. I feel like that would make the episode better, seeing as at first when I was looking at My Neighbor Totoro, I was like, oh, this is probably an episode that I will need to research for, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, exactly, like, I can talk about The Cat Returns, do you know what I mean? Because I recently just watched it. It's fresh in my mind, and everything that happened from beginning to end. But with My Neighbor Totoro, I've only watched it like once or twice. So I was like, honestly, I need to really understand what that film is about. I do know the main thing, of course, is that My Neighbor Totoro is more so about, I guess, like, distraction and like finding like a level when you're faced with like grief or lows, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's basically what May and like her little sister basically just go through anyways, and they meet Totoro and he kind of uplifts their spirits. So that's basically, I feel like that's, again, that is the message of My Name is Totoro. But I feel like, I need to be able to watch it again and have all these different points that I can touch on. But anyways, back to The Cat Returns, okay? So yes, that's what I'm saying. I recognized the cat from the film, and I generally thought, exactly, I thought I saw the cat he was already in Whisper of the Heart. And Whisper of the Heart, actually, I feel like I don't think I have it on this list, but it probably should be on here, on this Letterboxd list. You guys, I almost have like 100 Letterboxd lists, but let's not even get into that. I just saw that a moment ago, and I was like, I have almost 100. Like, why is it like I have more fun making lists than I do watching films? What? That's crazy. Do you know what I mean? That's insane. That's like when you think about your watch list, and it's like your watch list just sits there gathering dust, and daily you add more films onto it. But when will you get round to actually watching the films on said list? Nobody knows. But the fact of the matter is, like, I think lists are really fun, just because, like, yeah, like, to categorize, it's the same way of making a playlist. Like, all these little things, like, I'm curating things, they are amazing. They are really fun. And I mean, as I was saying, yes, I do need to put Whisper of Heart on this list too. And maybe again, I might talk about it, I guess, in the next one, because I guess I can put it on this list, and maybe it will probably take it will probably take like the 6. I feel like, yeah, it will take the space of one of the ones that are already on here. That's perfectly fine. Like, again, like, I always think with a ranking list, because people look at ranking lists like, oh, yeah, like, sometimes I find it hard to do a ranking list, because people will look at it like, oh, she's saying this one's the top, this one's the lowest, like, blah, blah, blah. And of course, that is how a ranking list is. But it's like, I don't want people to get misunderstood by the fact that, the ranking list is like, it's a ranking list favorites. So no matter where that film is ranked on said list, I like all of them. So it's just like, what I mean? And I want to clarify that. I like all of the films on this list. So really, it doesn't matter where they're placed. It's just, that's how the cookie crumbles, and that's how it's formed. I remember when I was writing my review about this film, I think I made a comparison to the Studio Ghibli films, the other ones, right? So that's probably where we'll start off. I made a comparison to Spirited Away and obviously Ponyo. But now that I also think about it, I'm thinking that Nausicaa would also go in that equation as well, because I feel like for Nausicaa, again, is like, I feel like Haru and both Nausicaa, they both had the ability to look at fragile things. It's the same way Nausicaa put her life on the line to protect the Ohms, even though nobody else really wanted to protect them. Like everyone was also just like, oh, they're creatures, they're big, they're scary. But Nausicaa was like, oh no, like I see the beauty in these creatures, and I want to stand up and save them no matter what. Do you know what I mean? So and it's so much so that Nausicaa becomes reincarnated. And then obviously because that makes me think of Nausicaa's Requiem. So obviously in that whole song, like Nausicaa's there just obviously protecting an Ohm, and like everyone comes at her, like it's little Nausicaa, and then everyone just comes at her and they're like, we want to take the Ohm away from you, and she's like, no. she's standing in front of it and she says no. So that's also like Haru in The Cat Returns as well, because obviously she had, like when she was younger, the cat, like a cat, I think, she befriended a cat when she was younger. So it's like they realized that Haru had always been a friend of the cat's. So like, even though she saved the cat who ended up being the Prince of Cats, they realized that she had always, cared for these creatures, like even when everybody else overlooks them. Do you know what I mean? So especially even when the Prince of Cat, like he was in the road and she was the only one that was like, oh my gosh, this cat's gonna get run over. Do you know what I mean? And then also she obviously helped that small kitten in the film, which obviously ended up being the Prince of Cat's like fiance. So I guess that's my main two comparisons with Nausicaa and Haru, is because of their ability to, look past themselves. So that's their thing in similarity. And then obviously with Spirited Away and Ponyo, my whole thing with that like similarity of them and those comparisons was that I was like, Haru almost in the film managed to become a part of the cat world, and almost obviously she got brought there because she was going to get arranged. She was going to be the bride of one of the Prince of Cats. But then obviously, they wanted her to get married to Prince of Cats, and obviously they realized that he doesn't want to be with her anyway. Do you know what I mean? It was like, he was like, they wanted to do arranged marriage, but he was like, well, I want to marry somebody else. Duh. And then of course he'd want to marry someone of his own kind, not a human being. But anyway, so like it's that Haru spends enough time there that she almost becomes a part of the world, which obviously is something that someone like Chihiro and also Ponyo can relate to. Remember, Ponyo was a fish from the ocean, but she decided to come out of the ocean and fall in love with a human boy, and so that's why she became a human in the end. So there. And then obviously Chihiro obviously almost ended up being staying in the bathhouse as well, because obviously she had to like try to work out how she was going to save herself, and also save herself and save her parents, but she had to work that out in that whole time. I feel like Chihiro, like, I don't know why, but when I think about who my favorite female heroine is, like, Chihiro probably is, like, she is up there, just in the way that I feel like she was so changed, like, from her spending time in the bathhouse, because I feel like the rest of them, of course, all the heroines in Miyazaki's works, they're all like unique. Do you know what I mean? They all have their ways, but Chihiro specifically, do you know what I mean? She, at first when we meet her, she seems like she's just like, like she gave brat, like, you know what I mean? She just gave, like, she was a brat in the first few minutes of Spirited Away. But like, I feel like when she ends up at the bathhouse and she's there, like, having to like do so much crazy stuff, like, especially when she was like, she already knew that she didn't want materialistic things, like when No Face was trying to give her more well, give her coins and give her all these other things, and she didn't actually want them. So she already knew, you know what I mean? At such a young age, she knew she didn't want any of those things. Because obviously, do you know what I mean? She's like, I'm not greedy. I don't want those things. Like, we know that No Face was, but I also feel like with No Face, his problem wasn't like, you know what I mean? It wasn't greed. Like, obviously, No Face just wanted company, and he had been like, I feel like neglected, because I guess the whole thing with No Face as a character is that, you know, we judge what we don't understand, and that No Face looks quite scary on the outside, but he's actually fine. You know, it reminds me exactly of like Guillermo de Toro's way of of explaining what like a monster is, but just in the way that how a monster is treated, just on the perception, but not who they are inside though. So no one wanted to let No Face in, and obviously Chihiro was the one that let him in. And then again with like Chihiro being my favorite heroine, like, and I know this is a weird point to be on, because it's like, hold on, am I not saying Haru's good? But I feel like that's what I'm saying. Like, when I was watching the film, I was like, no, Haru isn't that special. Like, yes, she likes cats. Don't we all? Like, no, but in the way that, like, yeah, she likes them. She wanted to save one. That's cool. That's fine. But I'm just like, I think for me with Chihiro, I'm just like, she went into the bathhouse and she came out, like, so changed, though. Like, she needed to go into the bathhouse in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Like, not that, of course, it was such a traumatic experience for her, but it's the same way that, like, that's how Miyazaki writes female characters. Not to say that, like, you know, they have to experience trauma, but it's just he basically shows us that, like, you know, well, he's the first, obviously, main, like, obviously director person to show women be shown that they don't always need saving. Even when, this is the thing, what I like about him, of course, is that even when he makes the female heroine have a love interest, for example, like, the love interest isn't even that important. Like, honestly, especially in, like, Nausicaa as well. In Nausicaa, there was the male interest, right? But it was like, he wasn't even really that special. Like, and I mean, when I say he wasn't that special, was that he didn't really do anything. Like, I think if you want to think about a male interest who did like a lot, you'd probably say, like, obviously Hal, and you'd say what's the guy's name? I was gonna say, I forgot what his name is, but the guy from Princess Mononoke. So obviously he's obviously a big one. Do you know what I mean? But I meant there's just, I like it when the love interest in a Miyazaki film is just like, it's minuscule, it's small. Like, it's not really about him, is it? Like, even though the funniest thing is that I guess with Princess Mononoke, even though it's called Princess Mononoke, the film starts off obviously being about the male interest, which is hilarious to me. Like, I mean, we are not introduced to San, like, right away. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we obviously first get introduced to the guy, and then we see, like, you know, how he gets bit by that thing, and then it just takes us on this whole journey. But then we meet San finally, and we realized, you know, she was raised by what? She was raised by wolves, and, like, she just lives outside, and she has a whole different, like, upbringing to the male guy. And then yeah, but, like, again, that's another good one. But again, I'm just like, I just feel like Haru, like I said, she just didn't like tick the box for me. Like, I didn't really feel like she was that great. Like, you know what I mean? She was good, but she could have been great. She could have been so much more, like, than she was, you know? I know in a way you guys might be thinking, oh, but she did jump in front of a truck to save a cat. But again, if you again, I'm saying, if you look on the scale and you look at the other female heroines, yeah, if you look at that, then you're gonna say, you know, she's not really that special. Although I did really like the fact that, you know, it was crazy. Obviously, she was starting to fall in love with the cat, that saved her. That was so weird. She was dancing with him, and then she just got roped up into, like, I guess roped up in the dance and the feelings, and then she was like, wow, like she was like, wait, like, I guess she had a moment of doubt where she was like, oh, imagine if I did stay here. But then it was obviously like she still came to terms with the fact that she did not belong there. Same way that, like, I think it's the same way that, yeah, like Chihiro had to come to terms with that too. That's why them and that, like, those two, I think Haru and Chihiro, they probably have a lot of similarities versus, I guess, any other heroine in the Studio Ghibli, sphere. Like, I guess in the collection, those two mainly, they both get each other just in the way that, they had so much experiences in the bathhouse. Chihiro made friends in the bathhouse. She could have stayed there, do you know what I mean? But she knew what she came there to do, like, in the way that she wanted to make sure she was able to save her parents. She also was able to save Haru at the same time as well. She didn't need to stay there anymore, really. And obviously she was like, yeah, I need to go home, innit? And then also it was like, she needed to go home because it's like, I guess, oh yeah, because her parents were turned into pigs, she had to leave in order for them to, like, undergo their transformation back to their human form. Because obviously, yes, what was her name? Yeah, so Yuaba had her parents locked up in the kennel or whatever, and then obviously that was the condition or whatever, or that just she needed to go back, then the spell would be unbroken and that whole thing. And then I suppose obviously, even when you look at the cover on, and you look at Cat Returns on Letterboxd, it says it's not so bad being a cat now, is it? Because exactly, like, I suppose it's interesting because I guess no, and then again, maybe more so on the transformation thing, you would say it would be Haru and Ponyo, I mean, just because, yes, both of them do undergo things where, like, obviously their forms change in the way that, one was a fish, do you know what I mean? One was a fish, then she became a human girl, and then obviously Haru was a human, and then she became a cat. And then she did realize, cat life, what I mean? It is a bit like, it's a bit fun, You got, like, tiny houses and, like, and then you get to dress up in a nice dress, like, you know what I mean? So it's also just like, she was just like, oh no, I can't stay here. Specifically because, and then obviously that was the craziest thing about this film as well, was then how the king wanted to marry her. And she was like, no. She was, and I guess that's another thing as well. Like, it's so interesting that like, I feel like that female characters always, I don't know, I think they always seem to have such good like identity, like, not into say an identity crisis, but I mean that they know who they are, you know what I mean? And they're so young, but they know who they are as well. Like, it's just like, I mean, like, Haru was able to know, no, I don't want to marry the king of cats. He's old, number one, and two, this isn't where I should be. So, like, do you know what I mean? Those first two things, you know what I mean, already. And anyone else probably might have been swayed, just because it just looks better. That can also relate to something like Coraline, for instance. I mean, like, that's what's always so interesting to me about Coraline, and why I always say Coraline's one of my favorite films, because obviously Coraline went to the other world, right? And of course, at first I feel like Coraline's whole thing started off with curiosity, right? And I also think that and I feel like you could also say that about Haru as well, actually. So Coraline's one was just about curiosity. She was like, oh, there's this door in a room. It looks interesting. Why is it here? We might as well go through it. And then obviously she realized in the other world, it was way better than her original world as well. Do you know what I mean? It was so much better. She had food all she wanted. Her parents gave her love and affection, stuff she was missing out on. So it's like, it's really interesting that even when these characters go through these things where they're in, they're in a different world that isn't their world, but they still know that they do want to go back home. Again, even somebody like, I guess, yeah, all these people who go to other worlds, like, um, Alice, Coraline, who else do we have? Lots of people, lots of people who go to other worlds and they're like, well, I can't stay here. Home is home. Actually, oh wait, one more. I just forgot. Remember Dorothy. So I forgot about Dorothy. I was like, yes, she was in Oz, but obviously she realized Oz was not all it was packed up to be anyways. Like, you know what I mean? Crazy. I would never want to live in Oz. Do you know what I mean? Either. So I don't judge her because Oz is crazy. Like, Oz is the type of place, like, when I was watching Wicked, I was like, Oz is the type of place where there's no democracy there. There's literally no democracy. What are we doing? We literally have to follow the crowd. That's crazy. That just means everyone is like each other. Like, imagine a world like that, where everyone had the same thoughts, the same feelings, and nobody said anything different. Remember, the only person who did was like, I guess, yeah, was Glinda. Glinda was like, of course, Glinda was blending in with what was happening, which, as you do, I think when you're in a world like that, exactly, you'll adapt, you'll be like, yes, I know the truth, but I'll just show you guys that I think what you think, even though I don't. But like, and that's the thing, because exactly, if Glinda had said she believed Elphaba, she would have been lynched. How crazy. That's what I'm saying. As what I'm saying, Oz is like not a democratic place. Wow. There's so many places where I'm always just like, when you watch them in movies, you just don't want to live there. You don't want to live there. No. Even when I used to think about that with going back to Coraline, I used to think when I was young, I used to think, wow, how great would that be? But then I was like, no. Then I was like, no, because that's crazy. Again, obviously, specifically being that the requirement was to get buttons in your eyes. And then also there was to get buttons in your eyes, but it didn't stop there either. That's what I mean. That's what the kids told her. It didn't stop there. Yes, you get buttons in your eyes, but your soul also gets taken away from you as well. So you're obviously basically dead. And do you know what I mean? That is what's going to happen. And you won't be able to get out either. So that's what I mean. But I think that sometimes these films let us know on like, clue us in on consequences and like how you really can't just do whatever you want. Because everything does have a price. Do you know what I mean? Everything has a price, and you can't do whatever you want because it will come to get you. Yeah, no, so I just found that Letterboxd review actually that I liked, which obviously said sometimes you want to watch a deep, meaningful Ghibli film, and then sometimes you want to watch one about a girl who thinks, yeah, man, I'd have sex with that cat, because we would all have sex with that cat. Because that's how I started the episode as well. Like, obviously I was like, there's so many deep Ghibli films, but this isn't one of them, and that's okay. I'm like, that is great, actually. It's what's the call? It's like refreshing because, of course, sometimes with the other Ghibli films, you have to use your inner eye, or just like, yes, you have to use logic, because I remember I did generally have this thought that Miyazaki films were really just about exploring your inner child, and usually they always are about children a lot of the time. So that is usually what I always thought was going on. But then obviously, as I came to watch more of them and then also learn more about Miyazaki, I was like, oh, like, no, these films aren't just about that. Of course, they're supposed to invoke that in you. Like, even how, yes, Haru goes on this adventure. You know what I mean? Again, a lot of them all have this adventure component in them. But, like, obviously, a lot of them also have this, deepness, this very much mature element to them. I think obviously because exactly, even in specific with Ponyo, this is just obviously for an example. Ponyo obviously is supposed to be about climate change. Yeah, obviously Ponyo is about climate change, but really, obviously, Miyazaki still just kind of leveled it out in the way that, it's about a fish falling in love with a human boy. But, like, he still wanted to make it, still make it carefree and, again, adventurous. But, he also wanted to also showcase something, and I think that's very important. And I feel like this is the thing that most directors do. Do you know what I mean? They all create with a way of, yes, showing you a hidden message, even though even what is presented to you on the front, they still want you to look deeper into what the story is actually about. So it says on Google that, yes, while presented as a light-hearted fantasy adventure, The Cat Returns contains deep messages about self-empowerment, personal identity, and the importance of believing in oneself. I'm trying to remember also because I might look in that book in a minute. But obviously, I think I told you guys on the pod before about the book that I read about Miyazaki and, like, his works, just how he does them. But I can't remember if I read if there was a chapter in the book about The Cat Returns, because obviously if there was, I don't remember it. Even though I guess maybe I might not have read it because obviously I hadn't seen Cat Returns until now. But obviously I didn't know that, like, that was the deep message, which is obviously that it says the central theme explicitly stated by the character Baron is always believe in yourself, do this, and no matter where you are, you will have nothing to fear. And that the main character, Harry, begins the film as an insecure, indecisive high school girl who lacks direction. Her journey into the cat kingdom forces her to find her voice and stand up by what she wants. By the end, she gains the confidence to make her own decisions and realize she doesn't need external validation from a crush or the approval of others to be happy. Yeah, that's so true. Because actually, yes, I remember that bit in the film, actually, about the crush thing. When she was talking about the crush with her friend, and then obviously, then she realized, I guess, that it doesn't really even matter. Also, embracing your own identity, and that the film explores the idea of losing oneself when becoming too immersed in the expectations of others. And as Haru stays in the cat kingdom, she physically starts turning into a cat, blurring the line between her human self and her new environment. And her return to the human world and her newfound self-assurance signify the importance of knowing who you are and asserting your own identity. And then also misinterpretations of animals. So yeah, they just encourages the audience to think carefully about how they interpret animals in the real world and the problems that can arise from misinformation. And then while some critics view the movie as a simple, fun fairy tale compared to deeper, more complex themes of studio movies like Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke, the direct and clear life lessons make it impactful and accessible story, especially for younger audiences. Like, I do feel like, The Cat Returns probably is another film that, you could show to young kids, because obviously that's also what I've said, I think, before about Studio Ghibli films in general, because I feel like not even all of them, so even though Studio Ghibli, when you look at it, you just think, it's kid friendly, blah blah blah, but not really. I don't think you can show all of them to, you know what I mean? You can't show all of them to kids, I mean, because I feel like, obviously, it's only Ponyo and what's the other one? Yeah, Ponyo, Spirited Away. I feel like, again, not Princess Mononoke too much, though, because, again, I feel like Princess Mononoke is quite, a mature film. And then also another one that I think is quite mature as well is, Porco Rosso, and also The Wind Rises. Yeah, because obviously The Wind Rises is obviously, I do think The Wind Rises, though, do you know what I mean, on that point, I do think The Wind Rises is quite an aesthetically, it's quite an aesthetic beautiful film, aside from, what happens in it. Because I meant like, it's a film about planes and like the building of planes. You know what I mean? So I suppose on that, and looking at it on that perspective, it probably is a film that you could show, seeing as, planes are quite pretty. But I do think that with The Wind Rises, though, it does obviously also showcase like grief, like, you know what I mean, like in the way that obviously his wife was sick. So do you know what I mean? And also obviously another one you wouldn't show as well is like The Grave of Fireflies as well, but that's completely obvious. Like, I feel like with The Grave of Fireflies, that's completely obvious. You wouldn't show Grave of Fireflies because it's very, very sad, and it's also about war. So like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's also about war. And also then, okay, his most recent, I think, with Boy and the Heron. I don't really know if you would show Boy and the Heron to younger audiences either. Just because, like, I don't know, like, obviously, again, that film, yeah, that film is semi-mature also, in the way that obviously it was like, it's about like the kid had to move as well, like, it's like going into newfound environments, relocation, what's it called, in finding when your father gets a new, yeah, new woman, like, so a stepmother, and then all this other stuff. But like, I do think that again, like how I was saying about the aesthetically thing, I do think that Boy and the Heron is very gorgeous as well. But you know what I mean? All of them are. But I'm just saying that some of them, of course, have maturer themes than the others. And like, obviously, I just don't know sometimes if like kids would be able to grasp them, what they're really about. So, and of course, I think for me with The Cat Returns, obviously it does say that about self-empowerment. Of course, that's actually what I've been saying, and that's what I've been saying in this episode anyway. But I didn't realize that, on the watch, like, you know what I mean, in the moment. And that happens a lot sometimes, I feel like when you're watching a film, sometimes it can be hard to to look at the deeper meaning, but you know, you come to realize it afterwards, in the way that, you just need to have confidence and everything. I do actually understand the self-empowerment thing and believing in yourself, just because I guess, see, now when I think about it, actually, see, now that I'm talking about it and I'm getting my thoughts out, I do think that you could, again, like I was saying about Chihiro and Haru, is that, yes, especially how in the beginning of the film, you see that, like, I guess Haru doesn't even really have any, she was setting her alarm, but she doesn't really have much, like, structure, or the way that she would set her alarm, but she wouldn't even get up, like, immediately, and like she'd be I do think there's a shift from the beginning to the end, like, do you know what I mean? It's very subtle, but like you do see it though. And then of course in the end of the film, it's like she has her alarm and then she immediately gets up. She also makes her own breakfast, and then like, her mum sees her and she's like, oh, hello. And then obviously Harry's just there like, yeah, good morning, and she's like, bye, have a great day. And then it's obviously like, you see, so there's a mood shift, do you know what I mean? So in the way that she was able to go to the kingdom, the cat, what is it called? The Cats of Kingdom, or the Cat Kingdom, and then she's able to like come out and like, yeah, just have a new outlook on life. Actually, that's the whole thing. So because that's what it even says on Google. It says, but her experience will allow her to be less unhappy and have a more open outlook. And see, this says this on like WordPress. It says, it takes turning into a cat for her to realize how blessed she is in the human world. Honestly, she was like, wait, I don't want to be a cat. You know what I mean? Like, I think everyone needs that. You know what I mean? That kind of realization. She was like, no, actually, I do want to be a human. It's like, okay, when I just ended that bit of on human, I was like, wait, that's why Ariel's weird to me. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, this is not like a bash at like Disney films, even though yes, it is kind of. But that's the thing. That's why we need Miyazaki in cinema. Like he was able to like, you know, reshape the whole female narrative. Like he was able to reshape it, and it was like was what we needed. Because why is it that, you know, exactly, Ariel was a mermaid, but then like she thought, oh yeah, no, I you know what I do need? I need to live on the land and not be a mermaid. I'm like, no. You know, like a lot of I guess us watching the film, we're like, but what if we want to be a mermaid? We would rather have your life than like you have ours. Like, you know, she obviously when she sings Part of Your World and she's like, oh, I wanna walk, I wanna run. We're like, okay, that's great, but like you live underwater, and like also you're also a princess, but like you're a princess underwater. So again, like Prince Eric, he was a prince, that's fine, but again, Ariel was in the ocean and she had a tail and she had sisters, and like, yeah. This is my whole thing. So I'm just like, it sounds like I'm criticizing Little Mermaid. Maybe I am, but still, it's just weird. Because I'm just like, you know, and that's why when I just thought about it, because I was like, yeah, Harry was like, oh, yes, I tried being a cat for like, what, a few minutes, a few seconds. She was like, no, that's not what we want to do. But Ariel was like, oh, well, I don't want to be a mermaid because I've fallen in love. So I would rather be a human in order to get married and like be with this guy. Which is like, that's weird. I do think that with Little Mermaid, which is really obviously cute, is that obviously her father gives that to her. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that's really special. You know, he was thinking that obviously he was suffocating her, which he was. That's okay. He was suffocating her. And then he's like, oh, like, okay, you can go. I'll let you go. You know, you can go in the human world. You can get married. But like, I just don't get it though. And again, why I was just saying that a second ago is that we all dream. Like, I think as young girls, anyways, I would say that young girls, we very idolize to be mermaids or otherworldly. Like, what's even that film again? Oh yeah, Aquamarine. Guys, Aquamarine, like we all like, we think of, you know, mermaids as these like siren creatures. We're like, wow, they're amazing. We're like, whoa, why would anyone swap that out to be a human instead? It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why would anyone do that? I would choose to be a mermaid versus a human. That's all I know. That's all I'm saying. So this is the thing. And then I think, again, like, I swear Miyazaki does have qualms actually against Disney films, because he's like, oh, why is it that sometimes they're just a bit silly and like they're unrealistic and they don't make sense? So that's what I just wrote out. But that's what he said before. Like, he says he wants his film to have, you know, like realism and like, oh, exactly, if not they're animated, he wants them to have realism in them, because why are we getting like fed stories that aren't true? Like, I feel like, yes, it's great to fall in love. I mean, well, fall into a fictional story. Like, I love fiction. I'll just say that. I do love fiction, but I'm like, if you're gonna give me fiction, like, okay, like, I just need it to make like semi sense, like not all the way, but just at least like a tiny percentage, you know, just 15 at least, because what do you mean? And then I think obviously Miyazaki's thing is also that he doesn't like to just, flesh out happy endings all the time. And he's so right, because like life isn't always that. Like, life isn't rosy. It's not all gardened. And I think that's very crazy. So it's like, yes, we should blame Disney for brainwashing us, brainwashing a society of people, right? To think that, you know, happy endings always come true and happily ever after and like all of that weird stuff. Or like all of that weird stuff, honestly. And I think, oh yeah, I was just seeing something on Google that said obviously Ghost of Fireflies is the saddest Miyazaki film, which I would think, yes, there is no other one actually that probably takes that title. Like, honestly. And I think obviously I've only watched Ghost of Fireflies one time, which is so great because who would be watching it a second time? Am I right? Like, why would you put yourself through that again? Like, one time was enough. But again, I just think that like, yeah, we do need to know, the truths. I think that's why, obviously, I do think, yeah, hold on, let me break something down for you guys. I do think that, of course, there has been a shift, though, in recent years, because, like, you know what's so funny is because even when we were growing up, actually, the films were sad, you know what I mean? But I don't think I even really watched a lot of them, I'll be honest. Like films like Monsters, Inc. and like Toy Story, I've never really looked at them properly, but like, you know what I mean? But they were sad. And also Wall-E as well. But I just know that there was like a shift in how I feel like when those film, like what Disney was fleshing out was always happy, happy, happy. Do you know what I mean? But then maybe a group like, Pixar or like DreamWorks, they more so want to give you the hard-hitting truths. But Disney is all about like looking at the happy, happy, happy. Even though, hold on a second, actually, I was going to check something because, like, before I say it, I want to know who it was made by. Right. So Pixar animation, but for Walt Disney Pictures. So, like, again, of course, you could say that Up is, yeah, it's made by Pixar, but obviously it's like for Disney. But like, again, what I'm saying to you is what was Disney on? Like, you know what I mean? What were they on? It's just rude. If really. I feel like exactly what Miyazaki's whole thing is putting his film inherent through turmoil, like making sure that they go through something, not in the way that like, I guess, right? That they're saved, I mean, I spoke about that already earlier, but like, I'm still stuck on it because I'm still stuck on it because hello, this is about my upbringing, okay? As a 23-year-old, this is about my upbringing. So yes, I am salty about it. But like, so he'll be like, yeah, they'll be like, yes, you're just gonna get saved. And then we're like, well, what did the female character learn? Do you know what I mean? She didn't learn anything because obviously all she had to do was like, you know what I mean? Like Aurora, all she had to do was lie down there and just get kissed on the lips. That's it. Of course, yes, she got pricked by was it? She got pricked by a spinning on the spinning wheel. And oh my gosh, I saw people that was on TikTok, like I think recently, and obviously I was like, yeah, that song is so haunting. And I realized it before though, until TikTok's like pointed it out to me, like in the way that the song says Aurora, and I was like, wow, the original Sleeping Beauty is so eerie, like, and it's just crazy. And then of course, and I think it's weird how they did that though, but how, in the normal Sleeping Beauty, we get Maleficent and she's like super evil. But then they gave us Maleficent, Angelina Jolie, which, hey, I love that film, by the way. But they gave us that, and then like we realized she actually wasn't all that evil. Like she was kind of, but like she really wasn't that bad. And then again, I guess they did this thing which they always do, which is like, they threw the sympathy card at us when we're talking about a villain, where it's like, she got her wings cut off, by the way. So she has a right to be mad, but like she does. I hear that. I do. But like, why is it I'm getting two different like storytellings, two different versions as well? But then I do feel like that is what it's supposed to be. I mean, how it's shown to us. I mean, so I feel like, Sleeping Beauty is told from, it's told from Aurora's perspective, and probably also her dad, gross. And then I do feel like, obviously, as we know, Maleficent, Angelina Jolie, Maleficent is told to us by Maleficent's perspective. And you always need two perspectives. That's what I've learned. Do you know what I mean? I've learned that you always need two, because obviously Maleficent was right. She was villainized. Like, it's the same way that, like, they created Elphaba. Do you know what I mean? And when I say created, they did create her, because obviously she wasn't a bad person. So they just created her that way. And I think I'm gonna do an episode on that soon, though. Like, it's I want to talk about characters who were done wrong, because they were, like, society failed you, and I'm sorry. And I wish that didn't happen. But it did. I'm sorry that it happened to you, but I really wish it hadn't done, because you don't deserve that. And that was the main thing that I left with, like, leaving Wicked for good. I was like, wow. I was like, Elphaba, Oz didn't deserve you, and they didn't. They didn't know how to as well. Like how I was talking about in this episode, they didn't know how to as well. If they're brought up in not a democratic village, what do you want them to do? They all share the same things. You know what I mean? Nobody can say the wrong one, like, exactly. No one can be like, you know what, actually, I do like the Wicked Witch. Excuse me? You like the Wicked Witch? Then they're like, okay, you're gonna have to get hanged. Do you know what I mean? Oz probably would be that type of place. They would make out like it's all yellow and shiny, but they probably would do that. They'd be like, oh, if anyone said they like the Wicked Witch, you're getting hanged tomorrow. Public execution. Absolutely. Flogging, tomatoes, apples, all of that. I think, okay, the last bit I'll talk about actually is like, yeah, like, imagine if how Harry obviously comes out of her room and she sees all the cats, like, having a parade during she sees them all walking through, and she's like, wait, is this real? Like, that scene is hilarious to me. But you need a scene like that in a movie anyways. Do you know what I mean? One that just completely makes no sense, but it's like just hilarious. It's just very, very funny. Also, I wanted to find one last review, and then that will be it. I like this review. That's like, yeah, I like this one. I don't really like the story, but the thing is, I love cats. I love talking to them. I love my conversations with them. Even the only response I get is meow. It's gonna be a fever dream if cats can actually talk to me. Yes, on the back end of that, I do think that one day they will make a machine to do that. They will. I know it. I know it, and I can see the future. I think that they will create a machine that will, like, translate cat messages. Why they haven't done it yet, I don't know. Like, come on, guys. Obviously you're in labs. You're there. Like, you should be able to do it. Like, you know what I mean? You have the tools. Just get to work. I'm kidding, of course. But I do think that we can make it happen. Generally, I do. Like, can we have cats speak in, I don't know. I was going to set a year goal, and then I'm like, okay, probably like 2030. Yeah, I'm trying to be generous. Like 2030, let's get that done. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.